The reason I gave you that little teaser is because welcome to the 2023 General Assessment Year, also known as a quadrennial. That's what this year is. Okay, 2023 assessments payable next year. All right. Remember this example where we had to revalue a meal because they got something more? That's what we're charged to do in quadrennials. We are supposed to go look at properties and see what's happening with them. Okay, whether they got a little more than we anticipated, they stayed the same, or they're due a reduction, which, believe it or not, we do reduce some. You don't hear about them. But we are supposed to level things out. This person up here has been getting this extra benefit to his meal for a month, 2 months, and you finally say, hey, enough. You know, we probably need to relook at your bill. Is it a good excuse for him to say, well, you haven't done anything before? You know, why are you changing me now? No, or my property hasn't changed. We just might not have been aware of it, all right? There is a mechanism for you to self-report changes. How many of you self-report? Probably very few, right? Well, there are times when you can and you do self-report. When is that? When you take out permits, all right? How many of you take out permits? Adam, what's our permit rate? Just teasing. Permits, they're important. They're important not only for them, for that aspect, but from our aspect, we need to be made aware. If we don't know what's going on with your property, or if we get a permit and they're not sent to us, we're unaware. So that means that we have to make a change when we become aware of it, all right? So that's what's happening this year as well, okay? The unusual thing is that the factors are going to be much larger than we've seen. 7%, 8%. Those were high last year, and we've seen those in some areas. This next year, I think it's going to be an average of 11%. All right, so if there's a huge increase in the lower number, something that's unusual that could create panic, that could cause alarm because people think that we drive levies. My assessment increased, you guys are getting more money. Obviously, that's not the case, all right? So there is going to be a little push and pull on what's going to be happening, and we're going to talk about specifically what is going to be happening so that you can even tell your constituents what to do, all right? So why is it going to be so high? Because a lot of people are nervous for this very reason. Everyone knows that property values have gone up, and they all think that there's going to be a corresponding increase to their tax bill because values are so high. This is market value. Our assessments are designed to be conservative and go along this lower line, all right? I'm not going to get into the nuance of these two, but just understand that these are the curves that we need to go to. What do you see or notice about, what do you notice about this? These two are starting, the market value is getting away from the assessments, right? Well, we have to adjust that. Now, this is where we have to be legally, all right? This is what is happening in the market. We just finished our 2022 assessment year. We know properties have been selling since 2021 and 22. What do we know about 2021 and 22 sales? That's when the market really took off. Right, Kim? That's when the market took off. Each one of those sales has a corresponding assessment. Take a look. It's a lagging system because every sale uses the prior year's assessment to maintain this lag, all right? Are we able to figure out where we're going to end up in 2023? Yeah, this is going to be where we calculated. This is the number the state calculates. It's going to be about 10.83% on average. I just averaged all our townships, all right? So are you going to be scared if you only go up by this amount? Based on everything I've told you? No. I'm telling you this is coming so that you're not worried about it, okay? Why do we do this? We do this in order to maintain that correlation because that correlation is key to what we do. We need to be fair, but we also need to give you a mechanism to check our work, and that's how assessments are designed. If we don't keep that correlation consistent, you cannot check our work. We maintain equity, and we do this in order for everyone to be able to check our work, all right? So understand that that's really what's at play here, okay? My question to everyone here is, how is the real estate market actually doing right now? And how is it being portrayed? Because that's where the fear's coming from. It's what I hear is market's down. Okay, what's down? Values? Volume? Volume, right? It's the volume that's down. It's not the values that are down. Do you see that in this numbers that we use, there is no adjustment for volume. We are taking raw numbers, and it's a system that lags. So when these assessment notices go out in a couple months, people are going to be thinking, hey, why is it going down if the market's down? It's going to contradict what's being perceived out there. So that's why, again, I'm giving you the heads up as to what's happening. Again, I'm hoping that I'm making a bigger deal about this than what actually happens. That's my goal. I would love to be called Chicken Little in this instance, all right? So how are you and your taxpayers going to deal with this? So I'm going to go over an assessment notice, all right, so that you can be ready for when this happens. All right, so here's our assessment notice, all right? How are you reviewing the assessment notices after we equalize? Once we are done with our work, you will get one of these alerts, all right? And for those of you that can't see this, I am going to zoom in a few seconds, all right? So you're not going to panic before you open it. You're going to say, I'm going to take a breath. You're going to open it up, all right? If you see a large increase on your individual, you're not going to react just yet, all right? You're going to review what the township factor was, all right, so that you can now get some perspective, all right? So you're going to look at these two numbers. This is your individual increase. This is the township increase, okay? That matters. If the number above, because we increased it and equalized it, is more than this 7, you can expect an increase in your tax bill because of that change, okay? It's just a matter of how much. It's not going to be the full 9%, 8. It's going to be relative to what's happening in your township, okay? If it's less, you can expect a reduction, or if it's the same, you can expect the same thing, all right? What are you going to do next? Next, you're going to take a look at your estimate of market value, all right? And then after that, you're going to take a look at your assessment total, all right? So here's your estimate of market value. You're going to say, hey, can I sell my house for 301? Yes, I could. All right, so check that box. I'm good. And I'm going to check to see what other similar properties to mine in my neighborhood are. If the assessments are similar, I'm done. I'm correct. Okay? I'm going to have to deal with whatever factor comes through because there might not be any mechanism for me to appeal. All right? If there is issues, then that's when you're going to start making comparisons and looking what's happening in the market. All right? If your assessment doesn't make sense, you're going to reach out to your assessor and say, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. Can you give me an explanation? They will work with you. All of our assessors are really good at doing that. All right? And if they can't do anything for you, or if you call the last day of the deadline and they can't work with you, understand that you can then file an appeal. There's a mechanism. I would say do this early, not later, especially this year. All right? Don't compare the amount of the increase. A lot of times during a quadrennial, people just focus in on this and that increase of their neighbors. All right? Well, my neighbor only went up 3%. Mine went up 7. Why is that? That's not fair. You're not treating me fair. Well, it's the total. Your neighbor may have been higher than you. You may have been lower than them. So we have to increase it more than his. So if you come with an argument of that kind, we'll listen, but that might not be enough for you to garner the reduction that you think you need. Okay? This is all important. Does this make sense? How you're going to deal with this. And again, my goal is that this gets picked up by people on the website. They come looking at and they understand this, because this information to me is critical for getting through the next year. All right. So what happens at the board of review? An individual has the ability to appeal their assessment. The board of review offers a semi-formal review of the assessment. An individual will give their data and their information, and then the board will listen to it. All right? But you're not the only one that gets to talk in those. The assessor who has done the work in preparation for this, will also get a chance to talk about it. They're going to present their data that says, no, they're okay, or they might be due a slight reduction at this amount, all right? The board will then decide what's the fairest assessment for your property based on all that information, okay? The board will generally make a decision based on the best evidence available. Their goal is also to be fair and make reductions or uphold assessments when warranted. A big misconception is the board wants to keep assessments high. That's not the case. There is no extra money brought in or lost, as all my math examples showed you, right? There's no extra money. They are there to be impartial to the process. And if you have good data and if the assessor has good data, then they are put in a tough position to having to make a decision, all right? When there are fewer losses at the board of review, the tax rate actually goes down for everyone, and that's important for everyone to understand, all right? So, final note. So some of you are saying, hey, Alex, you haven't talked about exemptions. I know that those are important, especially in this last year, especially since the laws have changed, all right? Here's where I'm going to address this. Okay, here's how exemptions work. Let's go back to dinner. All right, these 4 young people have been inviting Alice to dinner for a while. Alice is getting close to retirement age. They're like, hey, we want Alice to keep coming, right? So we know that $10 is probably a good amount for her to pay. Why don't we pick up the rest of it? All right, so that amount that Alice is saving gets shifted on to everyone else. Exemptions do not touch the bill, okay? A lot of people think that we try to fix a lot of what's going on with property taxes with exemptions. This is how it actually works, all right? Let's go back to this math example, and for those of you that are panicking or really hate this, I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to adjust this to current numbers for this next year. Average is going to be about 11%, right? That was 8. All right, that's going to be about 11. And what do we know about this number down here? It's going to be a little bit less than that because it's going to be in the middle, right? These numbers still yield that 6.7%, all right? Levies still have the ability to increase 5%. We don't know what the government's going to be taking. When you add in the exemption, or better yet, subtract the exemption, this upper number goes down. Well, what do we know about the number down here? Well, that's just a summation of the numbers up top. So what's going to happen to that number down there? That is also going to go down. So if you get an exemption, you can potentially anticipate to pay something more than you would have without it, all right? 3.61%. But what's going to happen to those that don't get the exemption, which I think is important? Again, I want you guys to plan and be ready for this. They're going to stay at 11%, which means that with that number, they're going to go up, okay? Now, exemptions did increase this last year. I believe general homestead exemption went from 6,000 to 8,000, so there's going to be some relief to homeowners there. And the senior went from 5,000 reduction to 8,000 as well. So those numbers are going to help those individuals, okay? I'm sharing this only so that you guys are aware, all right? And people can make preparations for what's coming. Some of the saddest conversations I've had happen a year and a half after these assessments go out when we can't do anything about it. A mortgage will now increase somebody's tax bill $400 because they need to make up the shortfall from their escrow from last year, and now they need to make up what's happening the following year, all right? Those are the people we can't help at that point. If you start taking note of these assessments and where they're at, start planning for it. That's important. You want to add anything? Questions?
Before we have any questions, the only thing I'd like to add is that Alex done a great job with this presentation, but it makes it look like it's a personal presentation from McHenry County. This is actually going on in every county, in every township in the state of Illinois. Equalization actually comes from the Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue dictates, this is law, for each county, for each township to have equalization. The second thing is the CPI increases in law, and whether you're a PTEL county or not, also comes from the state of Illinois. We are a PTEL county. like the majority of the Chicagoland area, larger counties. And that CPI of being capped at 5 actually historically has led to lower tax bills. The problem is, we're also one of the highest in the country in tax bills, so people don't realize what that CPI has done to limit what taxpayers pay in Illinois. But that was put in place when they started. We rely a lot on assessments and property tax for local government and schools, and that's just the way that is. That's just a caveat to say that this is really going on in every single county, et cetera. So questions, if you have them, please.
Yeah, the assessments, our neighboring counties are experiencing the same thing.